Committee meeting. Today's Thursday, December the 8th. It is 5:19 committee meeting. Today's Thursday, December the 8th. It is 5:19 p.m. We're in the Amber Yeri boardroom, and we'll have roll call. Dr. Cecilia Moreno present. Mr. Hector Noyola absent. Ms. Cindy Liendo absent. Mr. Jose Valdez present. Mr. Ricardo Garza absent. Mr. Hector Garcia present. And Mr. Jose R. Perez absent. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Valdez.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Nelson.
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience. At this time, I'll turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer to take us through agenda items 1 and 2, which is discussion and presentation to approve and or ratify monthly disbursements for October 2016, and discussion and presentation to approve monthly reports and other updates. Ms. Ayala?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Good evening, Madam Board President and honorable board members. Under item number 1, we have total cash disbursements in the amount of $20,056,629, of which 14.5 were used for the payment of payroll services and $5.5 million for the payment of goods and services. Under item number 2, we have the highlights of unaudited financial statements. This will be as of October 31st, 2016. Under gifts and bequests, we have, for the month of October, we recorded $15,677, while the fiscal year-to-date donations were recorded in the amount of $32,724. Here we have the revenues under the month-to-month comparison. We earned $26.4 million, which is 4% less when compared to October 2015. And that has to do with the timing of some tax payments. There was a change in procedures done at the tax office that caused the payments to be lower in the month of October. However, once we get the November payments, you should have the same comparable average amount. Under the year-to-date revenues, we recorded $54 million, which is 2% or $1.1 million more when compared to the same period last year. Under the tax collection summary report, September to October collections were recorded at $11.4 million, which is 39.9% of the budgeted amount of $28.7 million. And then, as you scroll down, the October collections were recorded at $11.6 million, which is 39% of the adjusted opening levy of $29.2 million. Here we have expenditures by object. Total expenditures, $18.8 million, which is 2% or $370,000 more when compared to October 2015. And then we have the year-to-date amounts recorded at $36.5 million, or 1%, which is $377,000 more when compared to the same period last year. Here we have those same expenditures, but we have them by function. We spent $23.2 million, or 63% of the total expenditures in instruction, followed by plant maintenance and operations in the amount of $3.5 million, or about 10% of total expenditures. Under other financing sources and our uses, the total for October 16 $642,975, which is $120 less when compared to October 15 of last year. October of 2015, I'm sorry. Under the administrative cost ratio, the standard being 11.05%, the amended budget contains an 8.35%, while the fiscal year-to-date ratio is 6.27%. Here we have the expenditures for the general operating fund. The time lapsed is 17%. Under the revenues, we have collected 26% of the budgeted amount, which is higher than the 17% time lapsed, followed by expenditures. They are slightly higher at 19.94%, and that is due to the encumbrances that we have open in the amount of $3.5 million.
We'll let the record reflect that Mr. Ricardo Garza is here. Thank you.
Good evening. Under the Child Nutrition Program, revenues recorded at $4.2 million, which is 20% above the 17% time lapsed when compared to the budgeted amount. And then we have expenditures of $2.9 and open encumbrances of $7.7 million, which bumps up the percent to budget in the percent of 51, which is a lot higher compared to the time lapse of 17%, and that has to do with those open encumbrances. Here we have the E-rate fund. We collected no revenues, expenditures, $11,000 with open encumbrances of $715,000, which is 16% of the budgeted expenditures, aligned with the time lapsed of 17%. Under the athletics fund, total revenues generated $79,984, which is 40% of the amended budget, slightly higher than the 17%, while the expenditures are also above the 17% at 29.46%. In our debt service, the actual revenues, $2.9 million, which is 10% of the budgeted amount. And we have expenditures of $1,500, which is less than 1%, and that has to do with agent fees payments that we issued. Here we have the special revenue funds. Are there any questions?
I do have a question on how we spend our money from the SIG, is that what it is, what it's called?
Yes,
School
the SIG.
improvement. School improvement grant.
We don't seem to take a position on what's the most important thing. We just have budgets that allow a little bit here, a little bit here, and a little bit there, so you end up with nothing, because there's not a clear focus. I don't understand why the funds don't go to intervention. I mean, that's what the students need. It's not more supplies. We already spend a lot of money on supplies. It's really not even more training. We cover that very well. So why not intervention?
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Nelson. The campuses, they each have a plan. When we work on the grant, they have a plan. And most of the campuses do allot money for tutorials, for intervention. Very little was allotted for materials. A lot of the campuses, what they did this year is that they allotted their money for capital outlay. iPad cards, laptop cards, document cameras. But they did set aside money for tutorials and for trainings also, for contracted services. So it's a variety of expenditures.
That's what I mean, it's a variety, it's not exactly focused on one. I think we need to look, I mean, I know these are done, but
Yes.
I think we need to take a position on that. Because it's we don't, it doesn't go anywhere if we just do a little bit of everything and nothing really focused.
I know that, for example, Cigarroa High School, they invested half of their money for a consultant, for trainings. The other half was for tutorials.
So why couldn't they have had this consultant before?
I don't know that they had them before. I know another high school did, and they saw results, so now they're going with the consultant. But each campus allotted their money based on their campus needs.
Dr. Moreno, may I ask a question? Aren't the school improvement grants, don't they have to be approved before we spend the money by the state?
Yes, sir.
So we have to, so like, we'll submit those plans, and if they're not,
Yes.
the state doesn't accept them, they'll send them back and say, this is not,
Yeah, but the state will accept them because there's nothing illegal about them, and that's what you requested, and they want you to have what you want, so that there's no reason why we don't improve. But fact is, they're not focused on the students, they're focused on,
tutorials is.
that's right, but there's not enough of that.
Right.
Most of it is not
We do that
tutorial.
and training.
Wouldn't it be pretty wise to send it, to just let the board see it before they send it to the state, so that we can actually
They
look
do
at it
give
and
it to
approve it?
us.
We do
Say
that
yes,
for a lot
no,
of our
yes.
plans, a lot of our, all those hearings and things, that's some schools, but yes, we could do it for all of them. But the thing, my point is that those plans have been site-based. And so if a school
Right.
decides
But
they
it-
want to
but
invest
where
in a
do you-
consultant, then we, you know.
But we should be able to contribute to their thoughts about how to get better too. It's not just them figuring out what do you want to do. Well, if they knew what to do, they would have already done it. The fact is, it's not for lack of wanting to do.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just saying.
There is some planning. There is planning. We look at it focuses on reading and math, their performance on reading and math. So they set a performance objective.
And do the deans contribute anything, or they even asked?
I don't know if the principals talk to them when they're working on their
See,
plan,
those are the kinds of things
Right,
that
because
but
it is
wouldn't-
site-based.
I see what you're saying. No problem. We can document that better. I mean, we wouldn't be bringing a consultant that our deans hadn't clearly vetted.
Right,
You see, we
no.
wouldn't just let them bring
But-
somebody that no one ever heard of or
but-
anything like that.
But sometimes they have a need for intervention, and they haven't got the funds for it. And here,
Right.
the funds were there, and they're not being
They
used for
split
that
their
purpose.
funds. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe, I recommend maybe that they present it to the finance committee prior to it going anywhere.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I asked this question last time, on the funds that come for the bilingual program, does that cover only the teaching of language arts? Does that cover dropout rate? And does that cover history and science in those subject areas also? Are they responsible for the LEP students in those categories also?
In math, yes.
The answer is they're responsible for them, but on our bilingual funds, the question, please make sure I understand the question. Do we spend bilingual funds on math-specific professional development, social studies,
Or
content?
intervention for those areas?
We have the strategists.
No, but
Mean-
the strategies don't work with the students. The strategies are here for the teachers, and we need to evaluate that also. Because, we've had that for so many years.
We use for tutoring services as well. And what else?
So you're saying so
And-
where we spend bilingual funds on curriculum resources, we might want to allocate more money directly to student interventions,
Yes.
bilingual money.
Yes.
To direct
Okay.
more, okay.
And not just in
And
the
the board
area,
wants to participate in that.
and not just in the area of language arts, but in the area of
The
social
content,
studies. and
all
They
et
core
cetera.
content.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Point well taken.
Lastly, we have the summary of construction funds. Any questions?
So I noticed there's an adjustment to some funds that originally came from Bond Series 205. Well, we'll get to it in a little while. I'll ask you.
Okay, sure. May I go to proceed to the next item, Madam Board President? Item 3, discussion and presentation on the following budget amendments. Discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $42,594 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories from the Board of Trustees discretionary funds. Item 3B, BA 1617-09, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $197,996 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories. Item 3C.
This is the one I had the question on.
On the E-rate?
Well, actually, on what we're doing with the money. It is revenue from transferring in from 205 bond series. Is the money coming from the bond series, or is it going back into the bond series?
To appropriate revenues from transferring from the, it's coming in from the 2005 bond series. We're bringing them in. We're appropriating to support E-rate projects that are qualifiable.
Okay.
Item 4A. This is discussion and presentation to approve and award the following bids, proposals, quotations, and contracts. Item 4A, this is a renewal, RFP number 15-008, delinquent tax statement services. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Laser Printers and Mailing Services for an estimated amount of $40,500. Item 4B, renewal, Department of Information Resources, co-op vendor number DIR-TSO-2538. This is for laptops and desktops computers. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Insight Public Sector for an estimated amount of $5,935,270.
Have we looked at any other vendor, or why are we going with the same vendor, just renewal? Is there better, could we get more for the price, or are we going with the same people over and over? That's my question.
Good evening, Dr. Nelson, Mr. Garcia, Madam President. For this particular procurement item, we did switch it last year. For the last 5 years, we have been buying laptops and computers from NetSync. And this is the second year that we have used Insight Public Sector for computers and iPads. So we do check with all of them. We do check the market. We do check the different co-op quotes. And the difference between the two of these is we include a lot of deployment services with the laptops. It's not just buying the equipment. We outsource a lot of the preparation, the imaging, the etching, the setup, the tagging, the inventorying. And this vendor's done a great job at that, a lot better than the one before. So we did check, we took a chance on this vendor, we saved some money, and we realized a little bit of savings and a lot better services on this item.
Thank you.
Item 4C, renewal, RFP number 15-041. This is for physical therapy services. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contracts to Algo Health, Inc. and Ruth B. Cowell Rehabilitation Center for an estimated amount of $25,000. Item 4D, renewal by board co-op vendors number 407-12, this is for science materials and supplies. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to the list of vendors for an estimated amount of $120,000. Item 4E, renewal, Region 1 Purchasing Co-op vendor number 14-02-12. This is for staff development and instructional materials. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to S3 Strategies LLC for an estimated amount of $50,000.
Can I ask you something about that one? I think I've asked this before, I'm just not sure. I keep reading the staff development issue, and I know we go over it every year. I just don't know, I mean, we do these by law?
Staff development?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, by doing that, do we get to get a sense of how successful these things are?
You know, evaluating our staff development programs is an ongoing task because we have so many different ways we train our people.
Right.
That fall under the umbrella of staff development. You know, we can dive in staff development training at a time, and, you know, as far as reviewing it with the board, you know, I'd like to say that those that are ineffective are phased out, and new ones are introduced as only as necessary.
I just keep wondering for the last 3 years of how, you know, and we go through this all the time. I mean, and it's not to talk bad about any of this kind of stuff, but it's sort of to try and pinpoint for my own personal ignorance about it, whether or not it is effective. And from our position, we just, well, at least I want to know if we're doing the right things at all times. I know we're following the rules by doing so, but, you know, sometimes I get the sense that it's just going through the motions type thing, and I'm just not sure whether or not what kind of evaluation we have on that.
I will have an item on the agenda for that finance committee that will maybe talk a little bit about the
Reviewing that.
expenditures for staff
Reviewing.
development and for materials,
Right.
because both of those are very, very big expenditures for us.
And software.
And
software,
software.
yeah. So,
So.
you know, we can
but-
do a better job
yeah,
of
we'll-
reviewing
We can
those.
come
I mean,
back, I'll come back with that through that committee.
I'm sure that you all, Dr. Rios and everybody looks into it in detail, and I have great confidence in that it's getting done the right way. I just, you know, sometimes I need to get a little bit more better grasp on, you know, how well this is getting done, how well it's providing the necessary tools to our teachers that they need, and how else, you know, we're allowing teachers to grow because of this. But
We
yeah,
are
we're gonna-
spending 7 figures on it, and so it is a major, not to mention supplies, that's a whole nother 7 figures. So we definitely can look more critically at which are effective and ineffective. For the record, most staff development for teachers and administrators is the same law that I'm saying mandates professional development, also says that the majority of it's supposed to be job embedded. But yet, we spend a lot of money on sending people to trainings and pulling people out of class, and that's really not the model that the state is suggesting for the primary way of doing it, but
I mean, I'd like to see
It's
it
a-
maybe,
it's a big part of our budget.
your CNI or something
Yes, sir.
have somebody say, you know, we tried this method because they told us, and here are the results, because we didn't know any better, and because of these people, we've taken it to the next level, that type of thing.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, Dr. Nelson, we don't have an evaluation unit, do we, that will be evaluating the performance that all of these programs have?
Yes.
Well, we do have evaluation measures in place for every staff development that we purchase.
No.
Yes.
The measurements are there, but do we have somebody that is dedicated or assigned to do evaluations on a full-time basis?
Yes, it
Of
should.
staff
The district-
development?
Right.
Yes.
No.
I got it,
On-
I got it. Thanks.
On everything we do. We have a big system here.
We do. You know,
And again, to see, I believe that Mr. Garza brought up a very, very good point. You know, who is measuring these performances? It cannot be the way it is right now. We need some facts and statistics and what have you. In other words, results from staff development, what happened, did we increase performance or what? And if not, you know, then we'll provide the appropriate changes or amendments. But
Yes, sir.
unless we have somebody checking, I mean, it's not that difficult. The problem is, do we have the staff to do it? See, right now, you don't have any staff from what I see.
well, the truth is that your points are well taken. You know, when you really want to start talking about training of our employees,
No.
in terms of what the board would be interested to know, is there a return on our investment? I can go department by department. We train our police.
No, I said
We
no. No.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah.
you know,
I said no.
responding to.
No. And in other words, what I'm saying, you know, sometimes we don't go in the right direction here. No. Do we have a unit that will perform evaluations of our operations. And I don't believe we do. And that's one of the problems that school districts have that I've noticed. Okay? And nobody's checking anything. We have discussions like this, but that's about it. And I think that he brought up a very, very good point. I don't see how it can be done on a full-time basis by, say, the director of any one department. They've got enough on their hands. But that's something that we need to look into in the future. In other words, it won't happen.
Creating a system.
Thank
Okay,
you.
next item. Next, 4F.
4F, renewal, Department of Information Resources, quote vendor number DIR-SDD-1962. This is for virtual desktop infrastructure. I'm sorry, this item will be tabled.
Which one?
4F.
Hold on.
4F? Okay.
Item 4G, renewal, TASB buy board co-op vendor number 482-15. This is for interactive teaching equipment. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to Education 2000 for an estimated amount of $330,715.
What do we propose to do different this year since we went from 72,000 to 330,000?
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Nelson. I believe the amount in question is the board approval amount, should we have funding to fully exhaust it. I think last year we probably brought an item in the similar amount, yet by the time we got done with our amendments and our Title Is, we only really expended 73,000, which is why those numbers appear to be that way. Right now, we intend on ordering about $200,000 worth of Mimeo boards to basically enable teachers to turn their whiteboards into interactive smart boards. So that's really what the item's for.
At this point,
And a large reason for this increase is because we just finished completing last year the installation of projectors throughout the entire district. And so this board had approved accelerating that process and making sure every classroom had a new projector. And so there were some campuses that were in need of, we had removed their previous smart boards and taken them off as part of this project. So this is going to be to replace those and leave them with that capability.
do we have any classroom teachers that don't have one?
Oh, we do, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We're not at a one-to-one basis yet with these devices in every classroom.
So do you think maybe we can get a report, Dr. Nelson, on where we are? In other
Absolutely.
words,
We
one to
actually
one.
keep a running count of how many we have at every campus and how many, we try to keep it as equitable as possible, make sure every campus has just as many, and as we increment them, make sure we deploy them equitably. And so we have a very good sense of what schools have them, how many they have, how many classrooms they're in.
we would be interested in knowing how many teachers don't have one
Okay.
and what is their subject matter.
Okay, by content
Okay.
area, not a problem. We can
Yes,
definitely do that.
Can I just refer you real quick, and I don't mean to waste your time, on 4F again?
4F,
Sort of
okay.
just to lighten.
It
yeah,
was
to lighten-
tabled, yes.
It's tabled, and just to lighten the mood. So was there any pun intended with that?
The reason?
Issues with the
It's
contract.
a desktop issue.
The contract dates were
Oh,
not
it's
printed
a-
correctly.
It's a desktop issue, and you wanted to table it, so I said I'm not going to miss that opportunity to bring light to the moment. All right.
This is the virtual desktop, sir.
Well, I know, but it is tabled, though. No pun intended.
Oh, I see.
It's tabled, right, so,
Sorry. You can't miss those type of moments.
so relax.
Item 4H, RFP number 16-039, this is for data transmission fiber services. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to Foremost Telecommunications for an estimated amount of $1,747,732, and this is for a 10-year contract beginning July 1st, 2017.
So what allows us to have a 10-year contract?
Go ahead, Mr. Muno. It's a recommendation.
Good evening, Dr. Moreno. So in terms of what allows us to have a 10-year contract, the actual agreement that we're entering into with the vendor is for a 5-year contract where there's 2 option periods. One option period to go 3 years, and then another option period to go another 2. The reason the agenda item says 10 years is because we're asking the board to give us the okay to go the full term should the prices at the time remain competitive, so we can continue to lock in the pricing the vendors guaranteed to us.
So are we talking about a 5-year and 1 5-year renewal?
It'll be a 5-year initial term, then at the end of the 5 years, we extend for another 3 years. At the end of those 3 years, we extend for another 2. But by asking for the 10 years, then basically staff would be authorized to initiate those extensions and not exceed the 10-year term.
And are they considered extensions or renewals?
They're extensions. Well, I guess I would have to understand the distinction. If the prices actually go down if we exercise those options. So for example, you're looking at $1.7 million in the 10-year period. The way the pricing is structured, I would say, from the last time I looked at the numbers, I would say the first 5 years, it's going to be about $800,000. This first option term will end up being $300,000, and it just declines. So it's based on a monthly recurring cost for all the services, and so if we initiate those extensions, we'll realize savings through all the way to the end.
So does purchasing law allow us to do extensions for 5 years?
Well, I can speak to and there's 2 different things at work here. There's the E-rate procurement guidelines in terms of what E-rate will accept as part of our application and what they will fund. And so from their perspective, as long as it's all written in the contract and the contract is signed within a certain date, E-rate allows up to 20-year contracts for these particular types of services. We didn't want to do that. We didn't want to be married to somebody, so to speak, for 20 years, which is why we kind of put these extensions in there so we could have an opportunity to get out. Either if the market changes 5 years from now and we see that we can get a better deal, which is very unlikely, but we're guaranteed those rates. So we kind of have our cake and eat it too.
So part of your contract and purchasing policy is that you can do it, but under those stipulations, you do have breakage ability. You
Right.
have the ability to.
We can get out, the vendor can't. That's
Okay.
basically what's
All right.
awesome about it in some ways. I mean, we have all the leverage. We decide
All right.
whether we want to stay, we decide whether we want to go. The only thing we're
Under-
guaranteeing to them is just the 5 years.
Aside from service, because I don't want to know the full details of the service they provide, can you give me an example of what would, lack of response time, customer service, are you held to that?
Yes, so the specifications of the RFP, so basically this particular contract is for the fiber lines that connect all the campuses
Correct.
together. And so within this RFP, we had specifications for what we call service level agreements. Part of those service level agreements mean that we included that a vendor had to provide a minimum 4-hour mean time to repair. So
That's
that's
what
a
I'm talking about.
concrete metric that we measure, that from the time we call the vendor and say the line is broken, is the time that they dispatch a truck, they get someone out there, they put it together. If the vendor does not adhere to that mean time to repair, then we're entitled to some financial compensation in the form of a credit that's prorated for the services. So if they charge us $1,000 a month for the line, it was down for so many hours, beyond the 4 hours of mean time to repair, then we get an adjustment on our bill. If the vendor continues to do that, then we can exercise an option when the 5 years are up to say, look, you've just been providing horrible service, we're not renewing you past the 5 years, and we're gone.
I guess for my information, but there's always also a stipulation under that contract if they break the line. If somebody else breaks the line, then there's a whole new set of guidelines for that.
Right, so what usually happens is because we don't own the lines, this is a lease arrangement. The company that we're leasing them from actually registers the fiber in their name on the poles with the utilities. If the lines are broken by, like, let's say a backhoe or a contractor that's doing work in the field, the State Public Utility Commission gives authority to the person who has it on the pole to charge the contractor directly for the work. But that's between the service provider and the person who broke the lines. So oftentimes AT&T, for example, who has most of their lines laid out all over town, has to respond to broken fiber lines because either they're putting a water line and the
Right.
city breaks it, or a contractor is digging up a street and they cut some fiber. Under the state of Texas, the way the utility commission is set up, AT&T can assess a fee for having their line broken. Foremost, in this case, will be able to do the same, but we're pretty much outside that process.
So we have 3 contracts going out to the same company?
I'm sorry, yeah.
That's correct. We posted 3 separate RFPs for 3 distinct services. And when all the bids came in, the same vendor offered the most competitive price, and it was a very aggressive price for all
How many
services.
respondents did you get for each of these?
I believe on item 4H, we had almost 9 responses. Item 4I believe we had 4 responses.
5 responses.
5 responses, and then 4J, we had 2 or 3 responses, more or less, off the top of my head, So we had an overwhelming amount of interest in item 4H. We had a very competitive bidding process, and it could have easily worked out to where we could have had 3 different vendors. We did that on purpose. We didn't want one person to have everything, so we broke it up into 3 bids so that we could open it up to the market and let anybody who's really good at providing internet services bid on it and not feel like they were excluded. Let anybody bid on the lines that connect the campuses so that maybe they're not the best internet provider in the world. And then anybody who does phone services, which is the last item, bid it. So the only one where we had a low response was on 4J, but for the most part, phone service is a relatively dying business. Very few people are really in it these days, and a lot of people are getting out of it. So
Okay.
that's the reason
Thank
for
you.
that.
Item 4I, RFP number 16-037. This is for E-rate round number 20, and this is for internet access. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to Foremost Telecommunication for an estimated amount of $479,700. Item 4J, RFP number 16-040. This is for voice telecommunications services. This is for E-rate round 20. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to Foremost Telecommunications for an estimated amount of $320,593. Item 4K, Region 1 South Texas Co-op vendor number 16-05-17, and this is for tortilla products. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to Exquisita Tortillas, Inc. for an estimated amount of $50,000.
What's the difference between 4K and 4L?
Angel Velasquez for the record. One is a co-op, the other one is an RFP, and we are buying different products on each. One is corn tortillas, the other one is whole wheat and tostadas.
And we didn't allow local vendors on 4K?
We used to in the past, we used to have 2 vendors, which was Santos and Titas. Exquisita bought out Titas, so they're not locally here.
So you didn't
Exquisites
want
from
Santos
McAllen.
to bid on it, or what?
They did, but they didn't get awarded. I'm sorry. On 4L, they did get the bid, on 4L.
But they didn't even have a chance to bid on 4K. You went directly to the co-op, right?
Right.
I think those are the areas where we do have local vendors that
We need,
we need those,
we'll
to
issue an
think about
RFP
that.
next time.
But if they don't apply, how do we get it?
Of course, you are asking for an option to renew a second and a third year, so it'll be 3 years before they have a chance to even consider that. Is that the corn tortilla or the,
This is flour tortillas and taco shells. I believe the other vendor in the RFP did not have those products. So that is why we issued the RFP.
okay, okay.
Item 4L, RFP number 16-041. This is for tortilla products such as corn tortillas and tostadas. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to Tortillas Santos for an estimated amount of $35,000. Item 4M, Region 1 South Texas Co-op vendor number 16-01-06. This is for cafeteria dining furniture. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to the EduSource for an estimated amount of $80,402. Item 4N, TASB Buyboard Co-op vendor number 487-15, 501-15, 503-16, and this is for furniture. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to JR Inc., Lakeshore Learning, Global Equipment Company, and Decker Inc. for an estimated amount of $214,336. Item 4O, RFP number 2016-005.
RFQ.
I'm sorry, yes, ma'am, it's, thank you, it's RFQ number 2016-005, and this is for roofing consultant professional architectural services. The evaluation committee recommends approving a pool of 5 professional architectural firms consisting of Armco Industries, Design Group International, Hickey Peña Architects, Sepulveda and Associates, and Slay Architects, which represents the best value to the district.
Once this has been approved, then obviously you'll be able to select one for the work that we need to have done. Are they all expected to provide the service at pretty much similar rates?
You want to respond?
Yes, to answer the question, we have a tabulation sheet, basically delineating the fees depending on the amount of the project. So any of the firms that we pick from here would have to comply with that.
Whatever
that
standard you have.
Fee schedule that we
right,
have already.
That you
in place.
already have,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank
Can
you.
I ask you, before you go on, as Armco and Slay Architects or Armco Industries, is that a contractor that does their own roofing design?
You
And
know,
is Slay
Armco-
also the same thing?
Slay is, it's an architectural firm. So
From
they
here?
have, the main branch is in San Antonio, and they
Okay.
have a local office.
Okay.
Armco, they have architects and engineers, but unlike the other firms, they only do projects that are related to roofing or building envelope.
Okay,
So,
good.
but they have, architects on the board.
You have the stamp to, they
Specialized.
design it, right?
They
Okay.
are specialized in
That's what I
roofing,
thought.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Item 4Q, U.S. General Services, co-op vendor number GS-07F. I'm sorry, I skipped 4P. RFQ number 216-005. Is this different? I'm sorry.
That's the award after you've selected them.
Yes,
That's
right.
the selection of one of them for the work.
Consultant Professional Architectural Services, deja vu. Okay. The Evaluation Committee recommends utilizing the pool to award a contract to Armco Industries to provide architectural services for district-wide roof repairs, subject to negotiating a contract for an estimated amount of $28,000.
So, if I may, Dr. Moreno, real quick, I just wanted the board to have, the 4 members of the board that are here tonight, in my opinion, are some of our most veteran on this issue, but the roofing issue continues to surface. So I just wanted to give the board an update that with this activity, we'll be selecting someone to help us keep moving this.
Right.
Right, just a quick update.
Item 4Q, U.S. General Services Administration Contract Co-op Vendor Number GS-07F-9671S. And this is for alarm repairs, parts, and equipment. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Star Asset Security, DBA MCS Fire and Security, for an estimated amount of $50,000.
Ms. Ayala, is it just alarms? Does it have anything to do with repair for cameras and parts like that?
It is only for alarms.
Okay.
A GSA contract is only for law enforcement.
Well, yeah. I use that because I think I have an agenda item about the safety of cameras at Christian is coming up because we can't discuss it on the agenda, but big issue.
Right.
It was just a security guard, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's like 19 cameras that are down. And
Hey, Kristen?
talk to you later.
All right.
May I proceed, Madam Board President? Item 4R, this is Region 2 Goodbye Cooperative Number 16-17-78000. This is for alarm inspection and certification. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Protection One, Inc. for an estimated amount of $30,000. Item 4S, Texas Education Agency approved vendors, this is for standardized testing materials, supplies, and staff development. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract with Data Recognition Corporation, DRC, for an estimated amount of $123,451. Item 4T, RFP number 16-042. This is for bilingual social studies educational materials. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to the ES Publishers, LLC, Camico Instructional Media, Inc., and Pearson Education, Inc. for an estimated amount of $40,000. Lastly, we have 4U. This is Region 2 Goodbye Cooperative Vendor number 16-17-6U000. And this is for software licenses. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Brainchild, Inc. for an estimated amount of $123,451. Dr. Nelson, item 5.
Thank you, Ms. Ayala. Item number 5 is discussion and presentation on boiler inspection late fees being charged by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations at an estimated amount of $455. Dr. Moreno, members of the board, obviously, we have a policy in place where expended transactions that are less than $25,000 do not normally require board approval. However, we do have a precedent in that any time we pay a fee that is a result of poor management, we were supposed to do the inspections by a certain date, we failed to do so, and now we have to pay a penalty. The operations department is saying that this specific penalty is actually less than $455. It's around $300. We had another one for something else in operations a few months ago. And so I just wanted there to be a high level of awareness that we're having to pay late fees for inspections that we failed to do on time. They're over a year old, for the record.
Where
So-
these, TDLR generally notifies you with plenty of time that you haven't done it, or that it's due to be done. Who's getting those notices, and are they going to the right place?
Mr. Velazquez, would you like to respond to the
Or are
board
we just
president?
dropping the ball?
Yes, to answer the question, basically, these boilers are inspected every 3 years. So basically, they placed a sticker on the boiler and they give you a certificate. So after that, there's no further notification. So it's up to the department just to make sure that it's about to expire and then to call the
So do we have anyone on contract that was supposed to be doing that work?
No, that's totally in-house. The tracking is in-house. So an inspector comes from the Texas Department of Licensing, and they inspect the boilers, and they give you the certificate that it has been
Do you not have,
inspected.
do you not have a spreadsheet that tells you when things expire?
Yes, we supposed
So
to.
somebody dropped the ball.
We supposed
I'm just
to.
saying that, 'cause you know what, I rent a hotel, I have a spreadsheet on every piece of equipment I have, when they're expired, when the, what are they called?
Maintenance.
Maintenance is on everything.
Correct.
And we
Inspections
look at, I'm
due.
a secretary, every year, this is up, this is up, this is up, this is up, let's do it.
This particular item expired in April 2015. So to answer your question, that is correct. It is the maintenance department, that's the department responsible for tracking and making sure that that doesn't happen. So that was back then. When the inspector came, he discovered that, we were late or the sticker was not there, properly located, and that's it.
It's no excuse. The reason why we put it on there is because we know that we need to do a better job of monitoring our inspections. I believe we have systems in place now to make sure that that's not an issue in the future.
We just gotta make sure, because that was the same conversation.
So who will be
answer we had last time they
responsible?
did this.
Is it a particular person that will be responsible?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's that?
Feliciano Garcia, Director of Maintenance.
You.
Mr. Valdez?
Thank you. I think that placing this item on an agenda for board action does not comply with our disciplining system that we have in place. You see, you're disciplining people, you're not even disciplining people here. You're embarrassing people, but you're not changing behavior. Now, you can change behavior, which you say you're going to do. In other words, do a better job with the staff over there, which is fine, okay? But then why do we do this? In other words, we also have the problem that this is under $25,000. When you say normally, well, you're leaving it wide open so that anybody on the board can say, well, normally we do this, but now we want every contract that's every expenditure of $250 and up to come through the board. To me, I would report that we have had to pay a fee because of a situation that existed. But it does not require board action. In other words, you take care of the administrative stuff. You have the authority on the part of the board to make those expenditures as explained. If the authority is there, why come to us? In other words, I don't see how we can do this, and this also complicates a little bit the administration. When is an item going to be placed before the board? Now, I think we need a little more explanation as to why this is being placed before the board. I agree with you, a mistake was made in the past, okay? Not a mistake, but some things were not covered. They should have been. I agree with you. And I agree, I accept that you are now placing more emphasis in doing a good job. No problem with that. But why do we have to have this here? Because it brings in other administrative issues on the table. So, I'd like to know why this is required.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
I believe Trustee Garcia would
I
like to
real
speak.
quick, you know what, I appreciate the transparency, and that there was something that's wrong that we have to do, that we're aware that, you know what, is not being done within the department. I applaud you for bringing it to us, and you know what, just so everybody knows, you know what, you messed up. If it's something that we messed up, I appreciate that, you know what, because they should have done it, and we need to know about it. You could have done it a different way by letting us know, and not put it on here, but I do appreciate that we are aware, so I see what we're doing to repair this, because this is wrong.
A lot of issues are brought before us, but see, this is being brought for action, in other words, for approval by the board. ¿Ya me entiendes?
Where does it
This is
say
not just,
approval?
I agree with you,
There's
I
not
agree with
approval
you.
on it. It's
There's
just,
no
Yes, it's going to go
approval.
to the board, am I correct?
This is just for awareness.
yeah,
It's
it's
not
just for
for
today. It's
action.
not going to Thursday's meeting.
It's not for action.
No, it's not going to next week's meeting.
Why do you bring it here?
Because we just wanted the board to know, to be honest with you, I feel like it's important for the board to know that we failed to comply in an area with the state. If you heard about that in the streets, or you heard about that through whatever, this is the second time it's happened in my tenure. And so it's not a habit, it's not something that we would do regularly. And really, I want to be clear that there's no discipline in this. I actually applaud Mr. Feliciano Garcia because he can't be responsible for what happened in April 2015, but he definitely is responsible for what's going forward.
Well,
And so,
This is something good-
there's a,
This is something good to come out in the
Operation.
finance meeting, so we can
Operation.
deal with it there and not in this part, once it's there.
yes,
And I'll
sir.
just add my 2 cents worth on that. It is good that it came out right now in that sense that, but I would appreciate that if you're going to do something like this, go ahead and give us the solution to it also. Not necessarily just to go pay it, but we do have the necessary software.
Spreadsheet, Old
Or
school.
spreadsheet analysis that we have, but we should have the software that shoots out the
Yeah.
timetables of what's due on certain dates, number one. Number two, it goes back to the same thing that this might not be the end of it. And I don't want to make something bigger than it might be, but at the end of the day, it goes back to why I want, anytime that a person takes over a position of this level, that an audit be performed for anything and everything that goes on behind him, because we're going to be getting this stuff. Well, wasn't my fault, it happened 2 years ago. Well, had we performed an audit, I know there might be something we couldn't have caught in the audit, but if we perform an audit and leave those positions free and clear of any deficiencies, we only get to judge that person from that point forward. And maybe at that audit, this would have come out. So, something to think about. I mean, just so long as we have a solution to the problem every time we bring it forward.
I just want to say that I think we need to make sure we have a system, a process to prevent this from taking place, not just assign it to somebody. We need to identify what that process would be. And
We'll bring it in January. We'll
But
bring it-
wasn't this brought out in the Operations Committee?
Yes, sir.
So here we go again, regurgitating this thing.
Well, you know what, but we have to be consistent.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is this, what I'm saying is,
This wasn't in operation.
you know, these
No, this wasn't
issues
in operation.
should be addressed differently, because not all disciplinary issues come
Right.
before this board.
Because there was
If
some
you
other-
want to, I'll bring some disciplinary issues. He knows that we're
this is
discussing
about
them.
fixing
No.
it. This is about having a
It's not
system.
about putting it in the
because-
bus, but
because-
we gotta be consistent, because I know in another department, there were several things wrong, and it was never reported to us. We found out later, but it never came to the board, because it was a
Well-
director that.
And the fact that it's
Right.
been that long that it's past due is also, should be a concern.
Well,
So the idea is, let's make sure we have a system that's going to fix it,
Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
the idea then is to bring it before a committee and then before a committee.
to
No,
fix
That's
it.
two
It
committees.
shouldn't come to
To
this,
fix
and
it.
it's finance, it should die at finance.
If you can fix it with one committee, then that's all we'll do.
Right.
Next,
Speaking of committees, item number 6 is discussion and presentation on board committees. Dr. Moreno has prepared a memorandum that summarizes her rights as the board president. Dr.
and I
Moreno?
understand that everybody's received one or is receiving one, but I'll call them out. Instructional Committee will be Mr. Hector Garcia as chairperson and Cindy Liendo. Operations Committee, Mr. Jose R. Perez as chairperson and Mr. Jose Valdez. Student Services Committee, Mr. Ricardo Garza, chairperson, and Mr. Noyola. Health Insurance Committee, Mr. Hector Garcia, chairperson, and Ricardo Garza. And that Finance Committee will have Mr. Hector Garcia, chairperson, and Mr. Jose Valdez as a member of it. Yes, sir.
What happened to the business and support?
This is everybody.
That's the full
Everybody,
board.
the whole board is here.
All committees are named by the chairperson.
Then I shall add that other
be
committee,
on that one, too.
Business and Support.
Everybody.
Our Business and
Point well
Support
taken.
will include all board members. We'll make sure that I've read it into the record. And
In other
again,
words, this is a
we,
committee of the whole really
Committee of
acting
the
in
whole.
business.
uh,
I knew that was what it was.
that's okay, but it did need to be mentioned. You were correct about that. I also want to remind everybody that being assigned to that committee doesn't limit you. It's supposed to make sure we have at least these two people there. But we've had very good attendance at most of our committee meetings, and I think most of us are finding that they're very beneficial. A lot of good information and opportunity to really ask questions. And we encourage everybody to show up at the Finance Committee.
Well, and if I may just add one brief comment, and I think I'm just being a little sensitive on this, but, you know, what happens is with all 7 trustees, is that there's lots of movement, lots of questions, lots of ideas, lots of suggestions, all of which are welcomed and appreciated. But what sometimes happens is we get accused of not being accurate with our follow-through, not doing what we're supposed to do, what we agreed on. Some things are acted on by the board properly, which I think those get a little bit more serious attention than when ideas are proposed or suggested. And so I just would encourage all of us to really use the committee meetings to document what we want done, what we expect to happen, ideas we want reports brought back to, so that we can document in a way that we don't get accused of not following up.
Yeah,
Mr. Valdez. Yes, sir.
I've been here, in another month I'll be here 20 years. I do want to say that this system that we have is working. Okay? There's a lot of information being provided. I think that we can still expand on the use of the committees. I've voiced that before, but in all fairness, when I came here, nobody ever heard of committees. And for many, many years, and now we've got the system moving, and it's more than anything else, it is educating the
We
board.
really appreciate your recognition
Thank
of us
you,
moving
because
forward.
you were very critical
Just
when I was the
happy.
president and said we shouldn't have had committees.
It's good, tomorrow's my birthday.
We appreciate all these good
Oh, no,
comments.
let me say this.
It's the first time you've ever
You know-
accepted it.
When you look at the committees, I don't know if this is the time to talk about this, but you see, I feel that there's a different use for committees, okay? I would delegate the administration to the superintendent. The committee should be used for something else. I'm going to submit to you a special committee system. I've got 6 hours in the University of North Texas on the use of committees in social agencies. I learned a couple of things in there, and I
Good.
can see that they can be very beneficial.
Great.
And if you look back, okay, the action to create the new early college at LCC did not come out of a committee. The action to create, in other words, these are not standard actions. The new actions that come into being. The early college high school at Tito Garcia's high school, that did not come out of a committee. The Jose Valdez, you know, substance abuse center that
High
we have
school,
there, did not come out of committee. And I could go on and on. We don't, those issues came out of the leadership of the board.
That's right, but we use the committees to
But it-
implement
well,
and to
Let
strengthen
me tell you,
those.
we can use those committees, again, I believe in committees.
Mm-hmm.
They have a authority. It's not the same as simply making a proposal here when it comes through a committee and to the board. It's different. Committees, we have issues, and I've said it before, that are not being addressed, serious issues. An average of 13 million and something, as reported by our CFO, from some of the statistics that she provided, that we are missing in attendance. We need to do something about that. That should be a committee work. The issue that substance abuse has now been declared a public health issue nationally for the first time in the United States. We have those problems. We're not dealing with that. I could go on and on. And who's going to deal with those? Committees could. I'm going to bring that. I told you I wanted to talk to you about that. Okay? That's what I mean. It's not that I criticize as things are not working. No,
No.
yes, they are, but they can be better.
But the
Right.
committee that's set to strengthen what we actually do. If it wasn't for committee, we were again, and I'll say it again, I'm very proud of the school district. Before we got, there were 19 schools that weren't acceptable. Because of the committee and talking about curriculum and talking about attendance, we're 0 schools. That wasn't done by itself. That was done because ideas that this committee has and ideas that our directors have coming together and with different ideas to come out with the best solution for the district to go forward. I understand what you're saying. The bigger picture should come from one more committee on maybe growth, But these things are things that we need to be aware of because of the expertise of everybody that's on this board to move the district forward. That's what we're elected to do, is to help our district go forward. And I think they work very well.
But if you will look closely at those committee meetings, especially operations where I participate, we actually participate with staff in the administration, in the operation. Now here, I think that we are micromanaging. Staff is supposed to bring their recommendations to us as a board. A committee then reports to the board. Our committees do not report to the board. You do not report with minutes. You know, you have a report. The committee and so-and-so makes this recommendation to the board. We don't even do it here. But it works. It's working here, okay? It is working. But look at your Robert's Rules of Order. It tells you there how they're supposed to work. And this board, when we started about 18 years ago, we introduced those. John Kaysen and I, about 17 years ago, John Kaysen and I put it together, and it was passed by the board. Of course, it's never been used. But still, coming back to this, overall, yes, we're doing better and better and better and better. This is good.
I think it says a lot about us, Joe, and I appreciate that because, you know, I've learned a lot. I came in here not knowing one thing about what CNI does or any other committee. I just chose to get involved and trying to find out whether or not I've been part of that solution-based deal was good. But I think overall in the past, you know, now we've created a hybrid type system of that we're not micromanaging,
No.
but we are certainly providing our personal expertise and our personal problem-solving methods to get things done. And only I think it was, in all the cases that we've been doing, I think it's been a necessary type of interjection that we do. Because if we didn't, we'd go through the same old system of going with whatever staff recommends. And then sometimes I realize staff might not be 100% right, or we might not be 100%. But if we don't have that dialogue in there, we certainly, I know of several instances where we could have been going the wrong way if we didn't have that open dialogue.
And we become a rubber stamp.
And
which
I
I'll
just
never
want to
become.
add that, yes, we want to improve our attendance, but the real issue is not the loss of attendance, it's the loss of enrollment.
Whatever
And
it is.
we've been talking
we're not
about
discussing it.
attendance, and we haven't said very much about enrollment, but that is the huge concern
Well,
right there.
We should have a committee work. A perfect example, Mr. Garcia said, we have some serious problems that we need to look into. If you look at this agenda today, we are recommending, because we are recommending, right? We even do it like by consent, you know, ya pasó. One motion kills everything, but passes everything. But let me tell you, we're dealing today, I was counting money, what, about $15 million, four of us, okay? And when the board meeting comes, there's going to be one motion made, you know, approve the consent agenda. That's it, 15 million bucks. Half of this stuff here, I don't even know what it is.
If you
But I
attend
trust
meetings-
administration, I have to.
Yeah.
So, but to come to a committee meeting, okay, I would rather discuss what you just said. What is it that causes, maybe we can reduce the absenteeism by half. Okay? We used to have programs that did that.
Or improve our enrollment rates.
Or whatever, right? I agree with you, okay? But that is possible only through a committee because none of us are doing it on our own. Now, coming back to this, when we get training as a board, even when we go to TASP, okay? That is also an administrative-related organization. That's why it has no muscle at the state legislature. I got that from a senator, not ours. But coming back to this, there is no training for us on this, yet this is what we do. They try to train me on how an academic program works in the elementary level, or special ed. We've got experts for that. This is what I do. Right here it is. But I get no training on this for the last 20 years. If we develop training on these things here, we would act much better. Huh? Anyway.
It's very interesting, but the conversation you said about attendance, if you were here Monday, we talked about that. I actually have a book
2
right here
hours.
that I'm looking at absence of the Nixon High School because we talked about
Student
attendance.
Services Committee meeting.
There was a student service meeting, committee meeting, You weren't there, but we discussed it, and we discussed the money that we left.
But it's interesting.
And we discussed all that.
It's
That's
very
why we're
interesting.
looking at this.
I'm glad you're saying that.
Right.
Listen very carefully. You could have a whole library
Right.
on that, but nothing happened because no action has been taken.
That the superintendent.
No action has been taken by this board. Our role is to take action.
Right.
Okay? There's no action taken. That's what I mean.
But messages have been sent.
Oh,
and that's
very
what
clearly.
counts.
Right.
Ray Charles could see some of these messages. You know, I also wanted to tell you too that obviously in part of my role, I'm having conversations with other superintendents and superintendents that are part of an improvement required district. They and the school boards are all 8 are being required to go to Austin for a 2-day training. Now you imagine some of the issues and challenges we have in our personal schedules with if we were required for all 8 of us to go to Austin. So I'm talking to some of my colleagues, and one of the things they said is that the training opens up with how does governance impact student outcomes? And they start asking the teams, the board members that are at these trainings, they're usually frustrated to be there because they're disappointed their district is improvement required. The first thing they ask is, how often does the Board of Trustees meet to discuss issues? And superintendents are saying, well, the poorly led districts meet 12 times a year, once a month. We met last year 57 times. So I just thought that's just a tribute to, we're having conversations. It's 2-way. It's not 1-way. And so I think it's very beneficial. Any other comments or questions on that, Dr. Moore?
Next item, number 8.
Item
Number 7.
number 7 is update on the 2016 State of the District Report and Superintendent's Evaluation, should say summative evaluation. Dr. Moreno and members of the board, all 4 of you have been here long enough to know the process. Tonight you're receiving what we call the State of the District Report. Trustees that are not here will receive it in the board update tomorrow. All 7 trustees will receive the summative evaluation form that was approved in January of 2016. What we've agreed to do is open the window for completing the one-on-one activities between tomorrow and January the 4th.
I'll check that.
Between tomorrow and January the 4th, and then we'd like to schedule a special called meeting for either January 5th or January 7th, depending on the board president's schedule. So we've got lots of meetings to have in January, so this will be one of the first ones we take care of so that we can...
The 5th is a Monday?
The 5th is a Thursday and the 7th is a Saturday.
After we come
And I'm proposing either a workshop on one and a special call on the other, or you and I can just, however you'd like to do that.
I'll give you a call.
Yes, ma'am.
For the record, he's the only superintendent I've ever evaluated. The other ones we never did.
Yeah, I get evaluated several times a year.
No, you just get a letter over.
That's interesting to hear. After 20
Well, I'm glad.
years.
Twice a
After
year.
20 years.
Twice a year,
Right,
¿verdad? We do it twice a year.
May we proceed, Dr. Moreno? May I proceed?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 8 is discussion and presentation on the 2015-2016 Texas Accountability Performance Report. We went through this very thoroughly at the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting this week. We will have a hearing on Thursday at 5:15 or 5 o'clock. No, the hearing at 5:15. And that'll be to go over this. You're receiving it today, and it's as detailed as I believe the trustees would expect in terms of information you'd like to review prior to the meeting. So, any comments or questions on taper?
I think you won't, Lenny.
If not, may we proceed?
Yes.
Item number 9 is update on retail energy contract. I just wanted to give an update that we've been working on this. The chief financial officer, the chief officer for operations, the general counsel for the district, and myself. We've really been trying, Mr. Kazin has worked hard to connect the district with an independent consultant that can help us review the different ideas that we currently have on the table, and we'll anticipate having some type of recommendation or update on Thursday.
Okay.
Any comments or questions? If not, may we proceed?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Item number 10 is discussion and presentation on the reclassification salary equity review process. Dr. Moreno, members of the board, I'm having a hard time finding, oh, here it is. You have a document that looks like this. It's 2 pages, prepared by our Office of Human Resources, and this is our reclassification process. I know all 4 of you trustees get lots of feedback from employees on their particular employment situation with the district.
Understatement.
And, yeah, it's a huge understatement. And so we've tried to organize a process that is clearly connected to our budget planning for 2017, 2018. And it really begins with us opening up to every employee in Laredo Independent School District an opportunity to have their position reviewed, including their job description, their current pay, and any other opportunities that they would like for the district to organize and formally review. We'd anticipate by the April board meeting being able to bring some recommendations that can be included for the board to consider and for our budget for 2017, 2018.
How often do we do this work?
We did the TASB study 3 years ago, and then we did this study 2 years ago, and that was kind of like a pilot for the record, because it was the first time we had done it since TASB. So I would say technically the answer to the question is we probably do this every other year. Now, technically, this is the first year we're bringing it with new leadership in human resources. This was developed this fall, this cleaned up process. It is taken from a framework that we've used in the past and from the TASB study. So it's all kind of connected. You know, there'll be people that submitted for the TASB study 3 or 4 years ago, and they're going to submit again right now. So, you know, and we encourage that if someone feels like they need to.
The only cost to us is, there's no cost in...
Time, right. We're not consulting
Paying
with, no.
former, okay. Mr. Garcia.
Okay, and I like this, and I'm glad that we're doing this, and I'll go maybe just tap into a little bit of what Mr. Valdez was saying earlier about, you know, not getting anything or doing anything behind it. I believe in this process. I think this process is excellent. There is one thing that I would like to see, though, as part of this, is that since again we're rookies at what we did two years ago with the salary review.
Yes, sir.
But I think now, 2 years later, I think we should have enough information to say this, and I'm not saying it for any particular reason other than to throw it out there so that we can start considering it. There are some positions out there that might not merit the amount of pay that they're getting. There might be some positions out there that might not merit the kind of pay they're getting. And the reason I say that is because I know that there is an imbalance that was created prior to our system.
I'm listening.
And prior to that system, there might be some situations in there where some people are getting more work for less pay overall, and some people are getting a lot more pay for less work. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel on this. I think we're headed in the right direction, but I really do think we need to start redefining and refining every position that we have, because, and it's noticeable. From up here, it's noticeable. It's drastically noticeable. So there are some things that, and a lot of it isn't because maybe some people are, as part of their job description, is this big, but they're getting this much done. And some people are job description are this big and are doing this much more. And I'm not sure if it's a management issue at this point, or it's over time, what are we doing about that? Because there's some overloads, and there's there might be some incredible injustices being done because some people are just carrying too much weight.
I'm going to suggest that you also look, Mr. Garza, into the fact that we don't adhere to our maximum pay,
Right.
and that causes some of that, which
Correct.
what you're talking about too, because
Correct.
we continue, some people started at the top, but then we continue to give them even beyond their max
That is
pay.
correct.
And that's what's causing some of what
Some
you're
of that,
talking about.
some of that is getting done in there.
So
Some of
there
them.
may be a time to start looking at that
Yeah, and then, on the other spectrum of that is that there's some people that, for X reason, have gotten to that position by the same level of work all the way through. But because of tenure or time spent, they've reached the level already at the same work level all the way through. They've never added more to the job description nor less, but they've cruised along all the way to the top. And those are the type of things that we're looking at. And it isn't necessarily at the top, I mean administratively or anything like that, but it's just overall. And I think that there's a great imbalance in that, excuse me, there's a great imbalance in that. And now that we've done this for 2 years, now we have enough data, I think, to start looking at some of those things. We might not solve it this year, but we're certainly going to start looking at it this year.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, no, this is very good. But I believe you still need to add something to this.
Yes, sir.
The process is good. Now we need orders, because somebody has to tell the department's head, you have such and such a date, to secure your job descriptions, to do an analysis, and so on, so on, so on. It's going to be quite a task. I commend you for going into this. And, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a process, and we believe that it's good.
Right.
I do, and I believe the comments here reflect that. But now we need to have administration implemented,
Right.
okay? And with timeframes, you said that by April we should have an idea, right?
Right.
Okay, well, this is very, very good, very good. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nelson, next item?
Thank you, Dr. Moreno.
I'm sorry, you forgot about this side.
No, I voted.
No, I think, okay, I have a quick question. If an employee, because I actually got a call by an employee today that came to our district, and he was working in another district for 15 years, whatever, at a certain rate, then he comes over here. We don't take those years of experience, and in his case, in this particular person's case, they didn't take any of that. They started him at where they started everybody else. Is that an issue that he has to wait till next year, or is that an issue that we can actually address?
My answer to that would be, it would depend on the employee, what level they're at, and how they were hired. If it was something where it was clearly wrongdoing on the district's part,
Right.
then we'll bring it for clarification and go for it.
Okay.
But
This
I
is
know
the
for a
question I was
fact,
gonna actually call Bobby and ask her, because she
Okay.
usually follows up pretty good.
so we'll
Real
follow up on that. I just, we have, as we've already started this process, there's, for example, in our principals, we've been trying to clean this up for several years, and what we've done is we've streamlined it, and it's clean, but there's a few principles that somehow in that mix, exactly what Trustee Garcia said, they've been in the district 28 years, they've been a principal for going on 6 years, 7 years, and it was before we streamlined our process, and we've got principals at a certain level, and this principal's down here, so I don't mind, working with Bobby to clean that up and making sure. So I would encourage anyone because there was a time where it wasn't as clean as it is now, and so some of that's
Correct.
coming to the surface
Correct.
as we've cleaned up our system.
We got to make sure that and I hate to say it, but we got to make sure we keep it clean and not political.
Fair, right. I agree.
Next item?
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Item number 11 is update on the Coca-Cola contract. A few months ago, this board made it very clear that they wanted the district to open up our opportunity for some type of vendor to sell products, Coca-Cola, or I shouldn't say Coca-Cola, soft drinks, juices,
Water.
whatever our child nutrition policies allow. I want to be clear. They want water is a good one. So we wanted to open that up because we've had a long relationship with the Coca-Cola vendor. So first of all, we want to apologize for not bringing this back sooner. number one. Number two, we are now ready to open this up and work toward completing the RFP process. Now, if you look at the background information that we provided, and in the interest of time, I would just invite any trustee who would like to have some clear review of this to please just let me know, and we will get you whatever you need. But the main thing now is that we're recommending going for an exclusive contract. And the reason we're recommending exclusive versus non-exclusive is because we get more profit if we go with exclusive. Now, to be honest with you, the technicalities of that and how it impacts our vendors and those participating in this bid, I have no idea. So I just wanted to propose to the board, because you asked us to open this up. Now I'm bringing it back for you to look at it before we post it, because if we post it and it's not what the board wanted, I'd want to know that.
Well, the thing is, if I remember correctly, is that the only reason that we didn't go exclusive because Coca-Cola was saying, no, this is how much, this is all we're going to give you for your whole district, which to me,
We wanted to compete.
it was a slap in our face. Our marching orders were, that's fine, get all the machines out of our district, which we never did. We sat on it just like this item 5 months back, and because I called it in, we put it back on the agenda. But this is something that we're going on 2 years, or 2 or 3 years that we got rid of Coca-Cola, and we yet to get a solution on this. I know that there's another company that asked, we've been trying to get information to submit.
From procurement.
Right, and it hasn't happened yet, or maybe they did talk to them, I don't know who, I don't know, I'm not gonna say yes or no, but, whatever the situation is, football season's
be
over with,
fixed.
where we could make it a killing, but we waited till we brought it back up.
It's true.
And it needs to come from, that's
Staff.
what they're there for.
So we'll be bringing that. You have a chance to look at the RFP. Mr. Garcia's point's well taken. He's already communicated that clearly to me, and so now again for the public. I'll be dealing with staff on making sure we're more timely in our responses. Any other comments or questions?
Number 12?
Item number 12 is discussion and update on the Laredo Housing Authority's plan for Russell Terrace. Dr. Moreno and members of the board, as you've heard, they're moving forward with their demolition plans at the Russell Terrace Housing Authority. The Office of Communications and myself, and I believe a designee selected by the board president from the board will be invited to join me tomorrow morning, and the Office of Communications. Oh, it's next Friday. So in any case, my point is, it's on here. And I'll be honest with you, Dr. Moreno, I should tell you this in private, but for me, I'd almost rather reschedule that meeting for a time where you can be present.
Right, well, I'm going to look at that next Friday. She
Okay.
had asked for
This
tomorrow,
Friday, right,
and I
okay.
couldn't. But I'm going to look at that date.
So okay, so
But
let's
in the
work on that.
meantime, since this could start happening, I think we need to make sure we communicate to our principals not to drop any of those students just because they hear that they don't live there anymore. Because that's extremely typical, and those are the things, we're talking about enrollment and how important enrollment is, and yet we still have principals that don't accept students who go to register, and we still have principals that drop students. So
Yes, ma'am.
we need to make sure we communicate. In particular, we might have some of these students that get relocated somewhere else, and maybe they want to stay. Well, don't.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking
Don't worry
about,
about them staying.
if
Let
they
them stay.
relocate them somewhere, I'm thinking about sending buses, to
that's
bring
a
them back to
possibility.
Sanchez Ochoa or
I-
Tarver, wherever they go.
They're gonna go to Casa Verde. Casa Verde is over there by Alexander, behind Alexander High School. That's a new housing project that they're building right now. They're pretty proud of it. It's a nice area. But, as I said, to the gentlemen when they were here, that kind of, communication needs to come towards us, but we are gonna lose them. I have no, because it's gonna take, about a year before they're not gonna remodel. Some of them are gonna be remodeled. Those aren't gonna affect us because they're remodeling. The ones that they're gonna do is they're gonna clean out one whole area and build a new building there. I just don't know whether those same people are gonna come back and how it's gonna affect us. I'm just hoping that we can stick to what they communicated to us on that meeting, and that it move forward. This is my district. That's a neighborhood I grew up in. I'm pretty well in tune with what's going on down there.
Yes, sir.
I just hope that, They have their marching orders also. I just need the communication level to be stepped up so that we can be prepared for what happens.
Yes, sir.
And I would recommend, Dr. Nelson, if we can get another pass, so if Dr. Moreno does go, that Mr. Garza is a part of that meeting too, because it's his district.
We talked about that, yes. The board president already mentioned that.
And we need to be prepared not to fill positions if we think there's some schools around
There's a
there.
host of things we got to consider in this,
That's
so,
right.
yes. May we proceed?
Next item.
Item number 13 is discussion and presentation on veterans field design options. Dr. Moreno, members of the board, I feel like I have 4 trustees who are well-versed in this. Mr. Velasquez has prepared a summary for the board to consider for this meeting. We're not asking for this. This item will not be on consent agenda. I was proposing that it be on the regular agenda for discussion and possible action, unless you choose to
Did
do
we
it
get
some
a
other.
copy of that?
Yeah, go ahead. So as Mrs. Rodriguez hands out this summary, I'll wait till the board gets it.
You killed the
For the
wave.
public, it's up on the overhead.
¿De qué estás hablando?
So, one of the things I want to be full aware, because the board could clearly give me different direction. We're recommending a stadium, a basic stadium, that is 2,000 seat capacity. And that's important because we received some designs that had it up to 3,000. So what we're recommending is what we call the first option. It's $2.8 million, and it renovates the ticket booth, the field, the baseball, let's call them locker rooms. They're actually called field houses, but for purposes of future conversations. I won't read all the things because you all are well aware. Now, if you look at the right column on the first page, this is where the discussion went out of operations. I believe there's members of the board that are not here, but they would want it clearly communicated that they're fine with the 2.8 million purchase, and what they're recommending is
A and C.
A, which is a practice field with a softball field, and I know there's trustees that are not here that are recommending C, because it's 4 teams. There's some that are here as well. You know, we could build an argument to have 2 teams over there, which would be option B. If you go to the next page, you see the difference between the 2 field houses and how much space we get. And then for purposes of conversation, the last page shows you the cost of the different options. Obviously, you know, I'm listing, I don't want to name specific board members, but Trustee Garcia, Trustee Noyola have told me personally that what they're advocating for is the basic project at 2.8 million with option A and option C for a total of $5.9 million.
I just want to defend that is, I think if we're going to do something, we do it just like we did the VMT, just like we did Nixon. You've seen the difference, you've seen the change in the school. They're taking pride in their school, they're taking pride in what they do. And I think Martin should be the same thing, that the kids can go and say, you know what, I'm proud to be at that school. They don't have dressing rooms. We built a beautiful stadium that you all did, and I congratulate you all on that. But we didn't think about dressing areas. We didn't think about anything else. And I think it's very crucial that we do it. Let's finish it off the way it's supposed to be done, and get ready for our next events.
Well said.
I was there last week. I did a walkthrough with the people from the city of Laredo. And once you take and for the public to know this, that once you take when you do a walkthrough and you look at the conditions that this facility is in, and for whatever reason, it looked like it hadn't been touched in 40 years. It is just in terrible shape. The field is beautiful. I mean, the field really is not going to have anything to do with this. It's just everything else. I'm glad that they took brought it down to 2,000 seat availability. I think it opens up the space for it. There's a number of things at site that we had discussed earlier that are not here that can coincide with Kristen and Martin High School, since they're adjacent, that they can still do and I think it's going to be part of the process here.
Which is the middle fields, right?
The middle field, the practice field needs to happen because we're so limited in space in there and so many kids and so many, we're trying to get our AD to promote more participation at every school, yet we don't have the space now to provide all that participation. So we have to make this decision. Now, in the second part, and one of the most important parts of this is we're satisfying what the student needs are. The second part is going to be the trickiest part, is where all that money is going to come from.
Right.
And I expect, and we have very talented people to do that, but I guess rest assured, I guess from my part, that let's figure out on how to get this done and.
We have some of it already.
Right.
We do.
Right. I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I guess
And
that's
we
the
have
next
options.
option.
We have options to fund either one, any
Right.
of them. So
Right.
we just need the board to take action.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I wanted to say,
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, but we stayed with the same outfield fence line. We did not decrease the 410-foot line, 385 on right field. Okay, we didn't make it shorter, right?
No.
Okay, we don't want to do
I
that.
think the only one was,
Like 4 or 5, maybe.
I don't want to make home run
left
derbies.
field. I think left field, we had discussed the left field, just so they'll have that walkway, that it was going to be not shortened, because it's longer than it should be anyway.
Dr.
We're going to do
Moreno?
a little of it, so that whole softball field will fit a lot better.
Yes, sir.
So,
Here's a very good example where this committee can recommend to the board basic, option A on this document, option A on this document, and option C.
Right.
We can make that recommendation now. Well, would you like to make a motion, Mr. Garcia, since you brought
No,
it
there's
up?
not, this is no motion, they're going to bring it back to us.
on Thursday.
This is just information. Yeah, but you're right.
From the information that has been
Like a
said,
strategy.
he will know that that's the option to bring back.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is A and C with a basic.
That makes sense to me. But it's just, well, I mean, no, as
Dr.
far as the
Nelson?
recommendation process, but this is what I want to know. In talking to some very
I'm listening.
very educated baseball people over this past week, that was one of the indications that please do not reduce those lines, because even though there was mentioned before that they want to shorten it,
JJ's
we
not
might be doing good, we might be doing a great disservice to the baseball community, because we're not going to have the talent come here to Laredo to, in other words, they're not going to bring their best teams over when they have a shorter fence line.
Oh,
So you
okay,
wanna
I
get-
thought they
you-
would, so
they-
get more
No,
kids
they
get
don't
home
want to
runs.
because- They don't want to because
I would.
it provides more of a, you know, if you'll put a home run derby over there, you'll satisfy the fans, but then nobody wants to come and bring their best people over here
Right.
because it's going to be one of those things.
Everybody does.
It's like not having 10-foot goal or something.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
We're gonna have more attendance than the, you know who.
Yes, sir.
So the other thing I wanted to say, and I just asked for, Trustee Garza, if you could really just help me think through this. So I was visiting with the athletic director this week, and one of my concerns is that the city of Laredo outgoing councilman for, I believe, District 5, Juan Narvaez, not sure what district that is. Four. But he has committed a significant amount of money to the Ochoa field.
Yes.
And it's my opinion, Dr. Moreno and members of the board, that we're going to get, I won't say criticized, but y'all know how the community works. When we put this money in veterans and it looks brand new, and then because of Juan Narvaez' outstanding willingness to partner, Ochoa's going to look
Yeah.
state of the art. And I think we're going to be left with a Benavides field that this
No.
board is going to
Well,
be demanding.
No,
Go ahead.
and I'll tell you why. The Choa Park looks terrible at this point. It needs that. And
Right.
so they're not going to bring it up, they're going to bring it up to par, really.
Just get it
So
where
just get it
Benavides-
to where it's going, because I went to the Nixon baseball field along with this field to walk it through, and that thing is worse than the Veterans Field.
What?
So, I mean, and it's rightfully so, they were using it for football, soccer and everything while construction was going on, banned everybody, and the field is completely shot. The field, the baseball turf area. But then you start looking at the stands, the bathrooms are probably from the 60s, I mean, they just look, everything
Talking about
just,
Ochoa.
it just needs a complete
Bless you.
upgrade because of that. And part of the work that the city's doing, that they're partnering up also with the councilman from that side for the Benavides field, that they're going to do work for that one too.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure it's the same. I think Juan Narvaez put in some cash.
Well.
And so I don't see that
in-
same commitment. I'm
In the
sorry.
conversation with the city manager, we had that meeting that we were at. He put in he's redoing the lights for that because
At Benavides.
it belongs to the city. It's not it's a joint venture. At Benavides, the infield, they just replaced the infield at
Unitrade.
Unitrade. That infield is being moved to the Benavides field.
It's been done, but it's not.
Yeah. No, because
I'm
they
just saying, at the end of the day, when all this is finished and
Right.
you got a CHOA looking like y'all have organized it and you've got veterans looking like you're
Well,
organizing it,
the only
I don't
thing
see
about
no
a choice,
fiscal commitment
it's
to
not going to
Benavides.
happen till after baseball season. What they're going to
Right.
do right now is go in there and just get it in plain condition. After that, then it's a joint venture
Renovation.
between the school district and the city
City.
to put them, because they still have money left in the bond of the Nixon High School to work with the city in finishing up that project.
Look, and then
Yes,
let me
sir.
just say this, and I don't mean it to be, to sound insensitive, but sometimes it's not going to be a 50-50 deal. It's not going to be
Yeah,
equal.
equal.
It's
Right.
not going to be equal. I mean, what we do for Martin sometimes is going to be more than what we do for Nixon. Sometimes we're going to do more for Cigarro than we do for Nixon or for Martin. It's never going to be equal. And the reason is because there's certain commitments and there's certain things that we've done, or this school district has done with the city prior to all of us arriving here. And so there's situations in there that just because the city of Laredo is hooking up a system that LISD and the city of Laredo it's a joint venture, it doesn't necessarily mean, well, because they've already done that, we have to do it for Cigarro. Cigarro, we're doing everything that we can for. They have other situations in there that benefit them that do not benefit other
No doubt.
schools.
One thing
So-
I do want to bring up is, because Mr. Perez is not here, we did commit that we were going to look for money, and they haven't come back to us on putting a turf field at the football field because of the limited space that they have at Cigarroa. So that problem is because that field is never, ever rest, because they don't have any room for band, soccer and all this. And we committed that right after that, we were going to look to see if we can get it ready for next year, and that was going to be brought to us. It hadn't come to us.
You know, the problem with that is we've been looking at that closely, and I visited Mr. Pettis about that as recently as this morning. Now, having said that, one of the problems is the construction timeline to put the turf down. Because you're right, they can't go without a field. We can't bus them to Memorial like we did Nixon. We bust those kids to Memorial for a year. So I'm for that. It's just, we got to look at the timeline. We'll be bringing it to the
Yeah,
board.
we got to look at that, because their numbers are coming up there in the middle
In
school.
addition to
and-
funding.
Yeah. We brought a brand new coach in. For him to succeed, we got to give him a tool to succeed.
Yeah, and I don't want them to go a year of having to go to Cowas to practice, but your point's well taken.
Next item?
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Item number 14 is discussion and presentation on a memorandum of understanding between the LISD and the City of Laredo for the installation of exercise equipment at Farias Elementary. Another one of our outstanding partnerships with the City of Laredo. Been working with the city manager and his staff to have this organized at no cost to the district. They will be putting equipment out for our community to use, and we're working on the MOU that ensures safety and security and lighting and lockage and everything that needs to do to make it a successful venture. Any comments?
For the record, that's going to be the most secure of our joint ventures with the city.
I believe it. So that brings us to communications and updates, if I may, Dr. Moreno.
Yes.
All right, we'll be recommending number 14 for approval on consent agenda. Item number 15 is communication and updates. On Wednesday, December 14th, it brings me such pleasure to announce that we'll be dedicating the district's first early college high school after trustee Hector J. Garcia. That'll be at 9 a.m. We also have next Thursday our regular board meeting here in the Amber Uri boardroom. Prior to that, that'll be at 5:30. Prior to that, at 5:15, we'll have our taper hearing, annual hearing, to go over our report card from the state. And last but certainly not least, it's with just overwhelming emotion that I would like to recognize trustee Jose Valdez, who tomorrow will celebrate his 76th birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. That's all we have, Dr. Moreno.
Just a reminder, we also have breakfast with Santa on Tuesday.
Absolutely, breakfast with Santa on Tuesday, yes. Several other, well, for the record, we got Christmas, holiday things going every night, every day. Angel of Hope is happening next week on Tuesday, I believe. Every night, pretty much, a school is having something at the Civic Center, so we encourage you to check our website to participate in our holiday festivities. I know Trustee Garza attended an orchestra concert. I went to a steel drum concert last night. It's a great time to be in LISD.
You know what, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I will not be here next Thursday. I will be in Midland, Texas,
Okay.
on work. So I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Work
I
is
see
gonna be
those that are
fun.
going to the party Saturday at the house. And that's it.
So do we need a motion to adjourn?
You don't need one.
Motion to adjourn then.
Then
That's
the
it.
meeting is adjourned.
It's over.